Police say that 4 people are now confirmed to have been killed while 3 others were wounded in separate shootings in Gugulethu on the Cape Flats last night. In the first case, 2 people were shot and 3 others wounded in the Barcelona informal settlement, while not too far from that area, a further 2 were killed. Police spokesperson in the city, Wesley Twigg, says that one of those incidents is believed to have been related to extortion. And now people with information have been asked to come forward and call Crime Stop if you do have information. By the way, the number is 08600 10111. That's 08600 10111. You can also use the mobile application My SAPS anonymously if you wish, or if you've got information related to those shootings in Gugulethu that you want to bring to the attention of police in the province. As we've been saying, shootings are continuing for another day in the Western Cape in the last 24 hours. So far, since the beginning of this month, more than 15 people have been killed in the province, majority of them in shootings in the Kraaifontein area, and we're only halfway through September. Let's get the view now of Western Cape Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Thembisile Patekile, who's joining us this evening. Good to have your time on the SABC, sir. So we've got at least one incident in the last 24 hours that's believed to have been related to extortion in the Western Cape. What information do you have currently as far as motives for the latest shootings?
Good evening to you and the viewers out there. Currently, the situation is still sketchy at the moment, but our experience in the area where this has happened is it's an area where extortion groups are fighting over the territory. We have not made any inroads so far, but we are working around the clock to find the perpetrators of that violence in the area.
When you say extortion groups fighting for territory in Gugulethu, what does that mean in real terms, and who is fighting?
What we know from the experience of other incidents is that there will be 2 groups collecting in the same area. But what happens now is that they sometimes meet at the same area where one was collecting and they start fighting, or when a person goes to where he was collecting and they found that or somebody has already collected. We've had this situation in many areas where we arrested a lot, especially in Kailicha and Nyanga, as well as even here in Gugulethu. We've had some of those that were arrested, but it would appear that we have not finished arresting all of them to be in jail.
And when we say that they're collecting, I remember when we were covering extortion reports in Cape Town, initially we were hearing of gangs or criminals who were demanding money from business owners, even to people as small as tuck shop owners, in order for their businesses not to be targeted by criminals. Is that still the same modus operandi in Gugulethu?
We suspect that has not stopped because we see the killings that have happened. And elsewhere, you may remember that between these extortion groups, there is also a rife extortion within the taxi industry and even in the gang environment. So what you're dealing with gangs that are extorting, the gangs that are fighting over the theft, you're dealing with the groups like the extortionists that are fighting over the areas where they extort. We're dealing with the groups of the taxi people that are also fighting over the routes and the taxi ranks in the areas.
And if you know all of this information, Commissioner, why aren't the people responsible in prison?
As I indicated, many we have taken, but it appears that we have not taken all of them. And also we are suspecting that some of those that are in prison, which we have intercepted many, that some plans are done in prison, which we are now discussing with our sister department ways of ensuring that communication is cut off between the people that are inside and those that are outside.
But what hope do you have of doing that realistically, sir, when you consider that that's not a new situation where even the notorious numbers gangs in the Cape Town area have for years been known to have leaders who, even if they are jailed, are still able to coordinate, give instructions, even order hits from beyond the prison gates. So how are you going to be able to cut off communication, as you were saying, when these people, in some cases, have police officers, correctional wardens, all of them in their pocket?
Firstly, I would start with one of corruption. We were encouraging the community to report that corruption because we don't tolerate corruption with ourselves. Where we found one doing that, we take actions. But there are a lot of good men and women in blue out there who are doing this, a stunning job in protecting the citizens of the country. Secondly, we will see that this is an organized approach, that organized crime that we're approaching in that approach. But what we're now having is to stabilize the areas, doing stabilization to ensure that we stabilize the areas so that people can be safe in the areas by getting more policemen from other districts, like from the Southern Cape, Garden Route, and other Wineland, Central Karoo, to come and assist in Cape Town. Also, taking all those police personnel that are operationally competent from the offices to be on the street to ensure that we stabilize the areas as we continue to look for those groupings that are organized in committing these crimes, be it in the gang violence, be it in the taxi violence, or in the extortions.
What guides your movements, though? Because it's one thing, for instance, to bring in more boots on the ground. We've seen in the past that that's not necessarily been effective. So you would need an approach. Last week, the Premier of the Western Cape was talking about data-led policing operations. What is guiding you in deciding, for example, who to deploy, where, when, and how? What intelligence do you have, if that's what you're relying on, for instance, that is able to keep you ahead of the criminals? Because at this stage, I think it would be fair to say they are still managing to outsmart you in many areas because we're seeing the bodies pile up.
Look, the environmental designs in many of the areas where the shootings are happening is also one of the obstruction that we found. And what we're now looking at the use of drones in those areas where we can't patrol on foot and either on vehicles. Now, on the other part of the thing is to get the communities and all of government looking at the root causes that are causing the problem. For example, one of the problems that we're sitting with is the youth that is idling, unemployed, not at school, which is a breeding ground for the criminals, either in the extortion grouping or the gangs. So if that, also ensuring that children that are at school going age remain at school. Those are part of the things that we do. Now, whilst we're doing the stabilization on our part, we're also looking at other stakeholders like the religious groupings, the business community, the youth formations, and all of society approach in those areas. We have hotspot stations that we looked at in terms of the gang. We identified 13 police stations that are contributing 72% of our murders and attempted murders. That's where we are. But also there are stations like where it's formerly only would call them murder stations like Kaili Chanyanga and all that, where we are seeing also a stabilization in that area, but now more on the gangs. And now in an attempt to ensure that we respond to all of them, that's why we're getting policemen from outside the city of Cape Town to come and assist. And I must say, the city of Cape Town itself, the city personnel, law enforcement and Metropolis are deployed with us in those areas, which we have a good cooperation in that.
Right.
We have since from...
Pardon me, sir, I was going to say the challenge that you're facing, and we were talking about this with the Premier as well last week, is that people are only as safe as they feel. So if someone still lives with the fear that they might be shot walking from a bus stop to their home, etc., or that if they even use the opportunity that you've now said is available to report, bring forward any information regarding what they know about these gangsters, the extortionists, etc., that they may be targeted because of the influence of the criminal groups, that remains a huge stumbling block. How do you guarantee their safety, the safety of the people who want to help you clamp down on the criminality?
We have the toll-free number that we have dedicated for the extortion. And that number is being used. I must say, we want to thank the public for using that number, because we've made an inroad in the last time using that number. And as our successes were depending on what we get, but we encourage people to use that same number again to ensure that they report anonymously. And when we got our approach to get that, to follow that information. And secondly, the under-reporting on extortions. It's one of the problems because people are not reporting. That's why we're encouraging that. Please report. Then we will follow that and we get to these extortionists.
And just lastly, I'm told we're out of time, but I wanted to ask you this earlier. Are the extortion rackets, are those criminals the same people as the gangsters who terrorize communities on the Cape Flats, or is it different people acting for different motives?
Gangsters are terrorizing people, they're extorting. Taxi owners are also doing extortions. But then you got a specialized group that only deals with extortions. That they are all in the same bracket of extortion.
All right, good to have your time. That's the Western Cape Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Thembisile Patekile, speaking to us on the SABC this evening.